should be a big crowd. Alrighty, guys, welcome to another episode of the Mighty Melbourne Stars podcast. Today I'm joined once again by Heath, co-hosting today, and we're also joined by a very special guest, probably the biggest one we've had on yet, Max Abbott. Welcome on, Max. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Lovely to join you, boys. Love your work.
No problem. Thank you very much. We'll get straight into it. So, Max, you've had a lot of previous roles in the cricket industry, media and communications at Cricket Australia. I've got down here senior media advisor as well, and also 2020 and 2021 media and communications at the Melbourne Stars. What made you want to return to the Stars to take on the role of general manager?
Well, I mean, even though it was a 3-month stint in the middle of COVID to sort of fill in as the media manager for a season there, and I think in a very short amount of time, just the culture within the playing group, and there's a real. They use the term internally a lot about the Stars family, and it's now since I've returned that it's still something that's in use today, that the group's really big on looking after everyone that's within that group. That goes for players, staff, and the coaches. So I just felt very welcomed in that season that I played, and that kind of turned me green for life that season. So I've been following the club quite closely from afar in various other roles that I've had in cricket. And I actually do recall saying at the time, about 5 years ago, to Nick Cummins, who was the general manager at the time, that this was a role that I wanted to do in the future. I think it's a fantastic club. It's the sleeping giant of the competition, you could say, given that we all know that when I'm sure you boys would have noticed the back end of last season when the men's team got going, you can really feel that the fans are crying out for a bit of success on the field. So, and when that occurs, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, no doubt. We've been impacted a lot from the Stars community. We felt the support for as long as we've been doing this through moments like this as well, that just shapes what the club is. And yeah, hopefully success comes our way very shortly. And obviously a way to get fast track to success would come through the international draft, which is our next topic. And So with your experience, you'd understand, the incredible demand for international players. As of recent, the BBL have struggled to sustain internationals for a full season due to other tournaments. So what are your thoughts on the BBL pushing the draft forward this year in an attempt to have players commit to a full summer in Australia? And has this made selection easier?
Yeah, I think it did make a difference. Also just for planning in general. I think it's nice to have your list sorted a little bit earlier. I think it was a huge focus this year to have full availability. Obviously, there are still things that can occur at any point with, fitness or internationals that can pop up at a different time. It can change things. But with all the information that we had at the time, and is thankfully still the case at this point, we were really only considering players that could play the entire tournament. I think from a continuity standpoint, when I come into the role, all the reports was that the feeling amongst the group last year was as good as it's ever been in the male space. So there was not a feeling of wanting to upset that too much with a whole bunch of new internationals that we hadn't seen before. Harris has fit into the group beautifully in the past and loves playing for the club. Joe Clark's a two-time MVP for us and is very familiar with the group. And obviously Tom was already here for his second year. And I know we've just been talking to him at the moment. He's going to get out here quite early and get a good block of training in before the season and make sure he's good to go for us on ball one.
Awesome. No, we're really looking forward to seeing those guys. It's handy having them all back. We know they're proven performers. They've all played at the club before, so we're really looking forward to seeing some familiar faces. Heath, I know you had a question on those three guys. Did you want to ask Max, what his thoughts are?
Yeah, no, sure. So my question for you, Max, is what was the thought process in selecting Harris Ralph, Joe Clark and Tom Curran?
Yep. So in the case of, I'll start with Harris, I think the thought was that obviously the group poured in Mitch Swepson in the off-season, so a domestic frontline spinner. And that meant that in the draft that we felt that we didn't need to go for a spinner in the international. And I think looking at last season, we didn't struggle to take wickets through the middle. So we really wanted to have someone who could break the game open for us in the middle overs. And obviously Harris with ball speed gives us that option he's able to sort of blast players out at any point in the game. So that was the main rationale for going for Harris, and add to the fact that, he just loves playing for the Stars. I mean, few chats I've had with him, you can feel the enthusiasm that he's got for the club. Obviously, he made his name while playing for us. And, anything that we ask him to do for us throughout the season, he's happy to help. He's passionate about the House of Ralph Bay that we have at games. He loves that we sort of do that for him. And I see a lot of the other clubs sort of copying in their own way across the league now as well. So he's Stars through and through. And I think you can't discount the importance of that, having someone who really has got that, I suppose, genuine affinity with the club. And then in the case of Joe Clark, we knew we needed a top-order batter to help support us there. I think it's well documented that through the middle, we've arguably got the strongest middle order in the competition. So we needed to strengthen up the top-order batting, and also gives us some flexibility in selection that he can take the gloves as well. It doesn't mean that he always will, but there's that option there. Gives us another option. So, and the fact that he's been a 2-time MVP for the club, it just felt like I guess in some ways a safe choice because of that reason. But when our broader focus was continuity, the list, because we felt really good about how we finished last year, that felt like the way to go. And then, there was no choice to be made on Tom because he's in the second year of the 2-year deal. So he was always coming to join us this season.
Very good.
Fantastic.
I would say on Tom. I would say on Tom though. I think he'll be really determined this season. I think we probably didn't see the best of him last year due to fitness. He had some injuries, and it was a disrupted season for him. But the fact that he's looking to get out here this year early for us this year, get a good 2-3 weeks of fitness in out here, acclimatise, and he's raring to go for ball one. And we know that the best of Tom Curran is an elite, all-rounder in T20 league. So, we're really determined to get, help him, get the best out of himself this season.
Yep. No, definitely. I think when you look at Tom Curran, it did feel like he left something out on the table last year with that gap due to injury. And I think he knows that. And the type of player he is, with his mentality, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he comes back and plays as like that X-factor role for us. And yeah, to reiterate what you said, Joe Clark, 2-time MVP, it's very hard to look past someone who's been consistently fantastic for your club. And yeah, Harris Ralph, well, that just speaks for himself, the culture, the vibes that he brings, and how good has he been recently on Australian turf. So really looking forward to him. And just another thing quickly on the draft. So obviously there's a retention system in the BBL, and there's also the pre-signing system. We use both of them with Tom Curran's 2-year deal, and we were able to retain Harris Ralph because the Strikers did look to take him. What are your thoughts on the retention and pre-signing system? Do you agree with them? Are you happy with them?
It probably wouldn't be my first choice for how it would run. I'm also there's a lot of trade-offs, positives and negatives to different ways that you could do it. I would like to see a bit more consequence in the draft, in that it's a little more open slather. It feels, with pre-signings and retentions, it makes it, I suppose, difficult to really manoeuvre, in the draft orders. There's limited flexibility. So I would quite like to see a situation where it's a little more unknown going into the draft, which I think would actually create a little more stress for us in terms of how it operates. But I think just for the fans and the interest in watching the draft, it would, it opens up more possibilities with teams, I suppose, less able to kind of secure picks in advance of the draft actually occurring. So that's kind of my personal opinion. I'm sure it'll get reviewed. But I also think the way it works is not, there is something nice about a player that's played with you for a while and being able to pick up. I wouldn't like to see Harris, going to another club, and I don't think Harris would like to go to another club. So I think it has its pros and cons, but I think ultimately, I'd like to see us do what's going to create the most buzz for the fans and interest out there. And I think there are probably ways that we can introduce a bit more consequence to it, but that's all part of the feedback. And, I don't think it's completely suboptimal the way it's done now. I think there's still, it has a lot of merit.
Yeah. No, I do hear a lot of thoughts on the draft, and what should be done and what shouldn't be done. But yeah, I agree with you in just making it what's most entertaining for the fans, and that's not just for Stars fans, but that's across the league.
Yeah.
To generate as much success as we can. It's what we want to see. So yeah, obviously pros and cons.
I wouldn't mind an auction. I wouldn't mind seeing an auction.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot about that. Why don't we do an auction? We should do that. Yeah, I think it would definitely be a more exciting time for the league, especially in the dark days of the off season where there's not much happening. Would definitely brighten things up. So yeah, no, that'd be an option. Hopefully in the future they look at that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Takes me to my next topic of the fixture. Yep. So we're opening our first home game, and on record, I scrolled back until BBL 07. That's as far as I could go on the website. We haven't played a home game for our first game at the MCG since then. So how excited are you to see the boys back at home for an opener at the Fortress?
Yeah, pumped for that. And that was quite sort of like deliberate on our part. We really wanted to play our first game at home. I think a couple of things. One, obviously, the fact that we're playing, I think, on day 4 in the competition on the Thursday gives us a little bit of extra time just to be together as a group, sort of just build that connection between the players and the coaches. And we really, opening night at the G, it's been 11 months since we see the Stars at the G. Like, we've got to get pumped to come out and turn the MCG green. I mean, historically, it's been our least attended game in December. Fans tend to really turn up in January, and in December, historically, there haven't been strong attendances, but we really want to put some effort into changing that. We want to start strong, and the first game of the season, we want to MCG Fortress, get on the board with a win.
Take down the reigning premiers.
Take down the reigning premiers. We obviously beat them last year at the MCG, so look, I really like the fact we're playing defending champions home our first game. We can really bill it as opening night at the MCG for us. Let's also means in the build-up, things like our family day we can get done before the season. All other sort of promotional commitments to the players can get done. So we're really happy to be starting at home, and we've got that road trip, which we know we have around the Christmas and New Year period, but we're much happier with that sort of pre-Christmas schedule this year.
Yep. No, that's fantastic. And me and Heath consistently talk on our podcast about, the rough starts that we have had. You look back to last year, we played our first game at Optus Stadium against the Scorchers. That's a tough first game to head over to that Perth wicket and take on the Scorchers, who have been such a dominant side for so long. With a few international replacements as well. We were down Maxi. We didn't have Ben Duckett. So that presented a challenge. And then, I think even you look back the year before, we were at the Gabba against the Brisbane Heat, who were the reigning premiers at the time. So, we're really looking forward to playing the Hobart Hurricanes. Yes, they're a good team, so it's going to be a tough battle, no doubt. But being back at the MCG is so great for the club and the players. And as you said, all the promotional things to hopefully get more people to the games in December. And now this was just a question that I had from a lot of fans. I'm not sure if you want to answer this, it's fine. It's not too detailed, but
I'm open.
It's a bit of a confusing one. Yeah, it's a bit of a confusing one, and you may not have an answer to this. That's more my thought. Many fans are questioning our home game at Manuka against the Sydney Thunder. What's your view on this situation? Because I've had a few mixed opinions. Some people unhappy that it feels like the Sydney Thunder's home game more than ours, and that we're robbed of a game at the G. So just what's your view on the situation, and have you heard anything about it?
Yeah, look, I can understand that, to be honest, that frustration. Look, at the moment, there's obviously a gap within the season where the MCG is not available. And to put an additional game at the MCG in January, it creates, I suppose, a very high density number of matches in a short space of time at the MCG. And obviously you pair that with the fact that the Renegades also don't have access to Marvel in December, and they're also playing in January, creates a real glut of fixtures at one point in time. So I think it meant that it would really condense our fixture to be right on top of each other at the moment in that January window, which is kind of ends up being not, I don't think, entirely fair on the playing group that our fixtures get so badly back-ended.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's something we need to continue to look at solutions for, and I sort of accept that member feedback. At the moment, there is also, so there is a sort of commercial arrangement as part of going there that's in effect too, which benefits the club in that way. But I don't I don't necessarily, I can understand that the fans sort of feeling that way about that game in Monica. It's something that will certainly, it's obviously the first season for me, certainly something that we'll review at the end of the season and take a look at. Can't probably say too much more than that on it, but at this stage, it's something it's there for this year. We didn't have any other options really for where to play that game this year, and Monica sort of provided the best option. But I think, look, obviously in an ideal world, we would have 5 games at the MCG. There is talk in future years that the league could start in a bit later, which might be in Boxing Day. That would obviously allow more Australian players to be available if the tournament started a bit later after the test. That's been sort of mooted at the moment, and that would obviously mean there'd be less percentage of the BBL where the MCG would be out of action for us, which would enable us to get a better spread of fixtures, across Melbourne there. So, look, something that we're looking at ongoing, and totally can understand, some of the sentiment around that game.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree with that. We kind of put it down to a similar reason, just commercial things and the G being unavailable due to the high demand. So we're going to move on from the fixture now and into a bit of maintenance. So what does a day in the office look like for you as a GM in both in-season when it's busy and in the off-season? Because I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that you have on your plate during the off-season.
Yeah, it's pretty varied, which is what, makes the role so enjoyable. I think the big focus for me this year has been, I suppose, on expanding our network, advocates. And I know probably when you talk about the most obvious one, so the MCC and the MCG, like that relationship is really important. So we're working really closely with them on initiatives to have the buy-in from their members. So believe it or not, with the MCC, it's a quarter of the venue that they have for us at the MCG. So it's really important, for crowds that they're turning up. So part of it's with that relationship, the way we work with Cricket Australia and the league around the promotion and marketing of the event. Also, probably for me, more of an observation around our membership program and ticketing. I'm probably in the first year observing how that goes and taking feedback. And I'd encourage people who are watching this podcast to get in touch with some of the experiences that they're having, both positive and negative. It's a tricky area to get right, but I think there's certainly things that we can do to, improve the experience that our members currently have with us. Certainly on my GM updates, my email address is always down the bottom there, so encourage people to get in touch. And then obviously on sponsorship is a big part of my role in ensuring that our commercial program's really strong. And we're really fortunate that a lot of our partners have re-signed this year. So my predecessor Blair did a great job, left the club in good hands on the commercial front, and it's fantastic that so many of our partners are returning to the club this year, following a good experience in the previous season. And then also just on the playing group, like Clint Mackay, from a high performance point of view, he's I suppose responsible for the list by and large across both the women's and the men's. But I stay quite close to that, make sure we're on track, and just ensure that I'm there for the players, get to know what they're like off the field, make sure that the environment that they're walking into is professional, they've been well looked after, and it's a club that players really want to play at. So I'd say that the role as a facilitator and, making sure that our relationships with sponsors and stakeholders, members and fans is as good as it can be. But that's part of the fun, really, is that no 2 days look the same.
Yeah.
On Friday night at the T20 here at the MCG, we'll be hosting our sponsors at that game, giving them hopefully a great experience at that game, and also being able to, just talk about the season ahead. And, we encourage all of our partners to help us promote the season ahead, because we want to see that MCG as full as possible. For sure.
Me and Heath talk about that also every time we hop on here, just seeing as many fans as we can get down to the MCG. And that plays a huge role, those sponsorships and stuff. So that's very important stuff for you guys. And as you mentioned, Blair, shout out Blair, he's done a fantastic job over the past few years, and it's good to see he's handed over to someone who's continuing that. And now the topic that everyone's been waiting for, it's our last topic. It's just quickly on signings. Now we have 2 roster spots left, and the season is fastly approaching. How much flexibility do you have with free agents, and not just you, the coaching staff, the list managers, everyone in general? What's kind of the talk with just a couple months to go before our first game on those free agents and those roster spots that need filling? Is the demand high for certain players? How are we tracking along with that?
Yeah, it's a real balancing act between looking at sort of who's available around the States and also ensuring that young Victorian talent, that we're identifying those and providing opportunities to them as well. So because we want, ultimately, although it's obviously clearly a national competition and clearly within our squad, we're not afraid to sign players from interstate, as we've proven obviously with the Mitch Swepson signing and guys like Hilton Cartwright played for the club for a long time. But we do want to make sure that Victorian cricketers feel like that there's a pathway for them to represent the Stars. And so it's a fine balance. In Big Bash, it's very competitive for young talent. So if you wait a year until someone's maybe ready, it could be too late by the time that happens. So it's a real balancing act between looking at, say, experienced guys that have been, they've done okay at other clubs. Maybe they've not starred but could come in and play a role and be an experienced hand, or do you sort of look to emerging talent and look at who's going to be in year 11 in 2 or 3 years' time, and you want to get them in amongst the group this year, give them that experience. And I think that's a really important balance, especially with 2 teams in Melbourne. Like, it's very competitive between the Gades and the Stars, between who's signing the best young Victorian talent. The Scorchers probably don't have the same issue as much in Perth because all young, they've got a stranglehold on any young talent that's coming through. So they're probably the way ups that we have in that regard. We'll probably leave that until reasonably late. Obviously, you want to leave some flexibility if there are injuries or other issues that pop up at last minute, that you've got some flexibility within your list there as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just that was the topic that I had to ask, that all the followers were begging for. I know I spoke on fan questions, but every response I had, I was saying this to Heath before, it was all the same question: who are we signing? So I thought I'd add that signing question in to finish off at the end. I'm not going to ask you who we're signing, obviously, but I thought that question was close enough for them
it's not locked in yet. I think you'll see most likely a combo of, there could be a combo of either young Victorian talent and then either a steady at hand, but we haven't finally decided yet, quite honestly. So we'll sort of just see how the next month or so pans out.
Perfect. Still plenty of time until the season, obviously, but we are looking forward to it, man. Heath, counting down the days. That takes me to the end of all my notes and topics that I had to talk about. Heath, did you have anything that you wanted to add quickly?
Yeah, I just want to quickly ask, what does the Melbourne Derby mean to you, Max?
Yeah, it's massive. I think you'll see. I wish I could tell you now, but we've got some good stuff in the works this year.
Yeah,
a few little, few initiatives that I think will be, well received by the fans coming out soon. Look, the Derby's big, and I think it's 10 years this year since BBL 5 when we had 80,000 at the MCG. I think there's no doubt that the Melbourne BBL clubs were adversely affected by COVID in particular. And I think we've seen the last couple of years it's rebuilding into the fixture that it once was. So, our target is to have, up towards 60,000 there at the game this year. I think it was 40 last year's Derby. The rivalry is real. I tell you what, when you're in the groups, even I was at the WBBL Spring Challenge last weekend, as Maxie come up there as an assistant coach on the WBBL side last week, and even just hearing him talk with the girls about the Gades, they're throwing barbs at it, saying, a couple of expletives in there from time to time, but it's like, they're anything. Even in the office down here, we sit in the office and we see an idea or something that comes out from the Gades, and we're like, they're just copying us. Gades, we're already doing that, or there's a little bit of rivalry in the office here around that, and You know, it's the rivalry is absolutely real. I know that it's two teams under Cricket Victoria, but we are quite competitive with each other, and I can tell you that the players are already talking about, you know, that January 4 game and wanting to get one up on the Gades. There is absolutely personal pride. Everyone who plays for the Gades would think that the environment in the Stars is no good. You don't want to play there. And everyone at the Stars thinks that, why would you ever play for the Gades? Like, you know, the environment there's no good. So, and I just hope I hope off the way that the team finished last year on the men's side, with those, you know, there's great, arguably the form team in the competition at the end last year, very similar list. You know, and we just really want to get something going here this year in that first game, and then also have a massive derby. And I think they're going to be really big nights. And also it's a 6 o'clock start, was something we pushed for this year. So at the derby, 6:05 start, which I think really helps for families. You do get a bit of feedback that for young families that the BBL finishes a little bit late sometimes. So hopefully that helps us draw in a really big crowd.
Yeah, those rain delays can cause a bit of time delay.
There'll be no rain this summer, Jacob. I've already made that request, so no rain this summer. It's going to be a beautiful, temperate summer. I think it was 40 degrees last year, wasn't it, on the derby? But we might.
I do recall that. I think I was there.
Yeah, I'm reliably informed it's just going to be 27 and sunny on the day of the derby, Jacob. So we'll be right.
And purely Melbourne Stars fans.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hopefully we can carry on that momentum. Like you said, similar squad to last season, just adding some depth, which will be beneficial. But that takes us to the end. We've gone well on time here. A perfect podcast, one of my favourites. It's always fantastic having special guests on. In the past, we've had some big guys, players, ex-general manager, obviously. And now Max is another special guest to add to the tally. Hopefully some more to come in the future. So thank you, everybody, for watching the episode. And thank you once again, Max, for coming on with us. We hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your support. Everyone in the Stars office here is well aware of the work that you guys do. And even when you disagree with us in here, it's perfectly fine. We love it. It's all good. It's all good chat.
So we try to stay sided with you guys. Obviously, fans always have their thoughts, but no, we really appreciate what you guys have done in the past, even just 6 months recently, with a lot of you newer staff members being able to collaborate with us, and we look forward to it. Heath, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, thank you, Max. Appreciate your time, and can't wait to see what the Stars do this year.
Yeah, and make sure you come down to a WBBL game as well.
Yeah, no, we'll get down there. I'm looking forward to coming to many games this season from both teams. So, looking forward to catching up with you guys, hopefully in person at some stage throughout the summer.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, guys. And, go Stars. Heath, you can end it now.
Yeah, go Stars.
What you doing now?